Kevin knew that he shouldn't be texting in class, but his friend Dalton was in the hospital again after being beaten by Dominic Archer's men. Just as he was texting Dominic's sister Gwen Archer, Kevin was surprised to see a hand snatch away his phone. It was Professor Murdock. "Gotcha!" she exclaimed. She didn't say it loudly, but everyone in the classroom could hear her as clear as a bell. "What be luck to get caught sitting in the last row playing with his phone," one of the students whispered to another. They'd already seen him running laps yesterday, and now they were wondering what would happen. When Kevin heard everyone whispering instead of feeling ashamed, he just smiled. "Professor Murdock, it's not what you think. I was just taking a look." Kevin even reached out his hand to take his phone back. "You want to take your phone back after I've confiscated it? It won't be that easy," she replied sternly. "I just don't understand you, Kevin. Your classmates aren't listening to the lecture because they're from rich families and can get herbal meds without working for them. But why aren't you paying attention? Didn't you learn anything from yesterday's punishment?" Professor Murdock continued. "You have a great opportunity here. Don't you understand that? Do you really want to be a laughingstock for the rest of your life? Think about it." After she said that, the professor took Kevin's phone and walked back to the podium. "There was a lot less pressure when I was just hanging around the house," Kevin muttered to himself as he watched her walk away. The other students had been taking various herbal meds, so they had excellent hearing. There was some laughter in the room when they heard Kevin's complaint. Professor Murdock naturally heard Kevin too, and she spun around to stare at him. "I'm disappointed in you, Kevin," Professor Murdock said angrily. "Since you're acting like a kindergartner, I'm going to treat you like one. Move your desk over to the corner for the rest of the day. You can't move until I say so." This was very upsetting for Kevin. He'd gotten off to a really bad start with Professor Murdock, and it just kept getting worse. "After I steal the consolidation formula, I won't be coming back to this creepy place," Kevin thought to himself, but he didn't say it out loud this time. The professor tossed Kevin's phone onto the table, and then she had an idea. "I think it's time for us to choose a student leader. This is a very important position because the student leader has duties outside the classroom," she continued, "like supervising everyone's progress and handing out assignments to everyone." The students got very excited because this would give them a chance to get closer to Professor Murdock and brown-nose her. If you did a good job, who knows where this opportunity could lead? Plus, what was really important for these rich, privileged young people was that it would give them some power. A lot of them enthusiastically raised their hands to volunteer for the position. But Professor Murdock stopped them and explained, "In the interest of fairness, tomorrow's election will be anonymous. Just remember that you can't vote for yourself, so I expect you to use the honor system." When the lesson was finally over, Kevin was still sitting in the corner in a very bad mood. This definitely wouldn't help his reputation on campus. "Well, that was humiliating," Kevin said to himself as he got up from his seat. "Kevin, you can go back to your regular seat now. However, there's something I want to talk to you about," the professor instructed him without even looking up from her notes. What now? How could there possibly be anything to talk about? Kevin thought as he looked at Professor Murdock in disbelief. She motioned for the class to be quiet while she spoke. "Please be patient. This will only take a couple of minutes." She paused for a moment. "As long as you're all going to be in the same class, I think you should get to know each other socially. So I've decided to treat you to dinner." As soon as she finished speaking, one of the students stood up to address the class. It was Michael Tripp, a young stud from Detroit. "We couldn't possibly let you treat us, Professor. After all, you're about to teach us the deepest secrets of herbal medicine. The least we can do is to invite you to dinner," he announced. "In fact, I'll treat the whole class to dinner, in your honor," Mike said with a broad smile. It sounded like a sincere invitation, but Mike wasn't just trying to butter up the professor. He was also trying to buy votes for the election. He really wanted to be the student leader. "But I couldn't possibly let you do something like that," Professor Murdock replied warily. "It's no big deal, Professor. Just think of it as me treating you to dinner and taking along a few friends. Mike explained. He was really laying it on thick. Just then, 2 other students stood up. "Professor Murdock, I think Mike's right," Luther Holmes said loudly. "I agree. It would be great for all of us to unwind and get to know you," Lionel Chandler chimed in. He was a good brown-noser too. These 2 guys weren't very rich, but they were both very smart. After only 2 days of classes, they'd made friends with Mike Tripp. By supporting him now, they might be rewarded later on. The whole class got very excited as everyone discussed what they should do. One of them pointed out that it was a great chance for the faculty and students to get to know each other. They did their best to convince Professor Murdock to accept Mike's offer. Seeing that most of his classmates wanted to go, Mike broke into a smile. He turned around and very politely said, "Professor Murdock, the class really wants to go with this plan. Why don't you join us?" She thought for a moment and then nodded in agreement. "Okay, I will." Faculty members weren't allowed to accept gifts or see students privately, but since the whole class was going, she wouldn't be accused of favoritism. It was really no big deal to just have a meal with them. What Professor Murdock was interested in was observing the students during the dinner so that she could have some insight into their personalities. This would make it easier for her to handle the class over the next couple of years. "Great! Since Professor Murdock is on board, I'll get someone to make all the arrangements for transportation. We're all going to the Whistler Hotel this evening," Mike said happily. Although the Salix Leaf Hotel was now the most exclusive place in Chicago, it was by far the most expensive venue to have a meal, especially with such a large group. But the problem was that Mike really couldn't afford to invite so many people to the hotel's restaurant for dinner. The Whistler Hotel was definitely more in his budget. On top of that, the Whistler Hotel's restaurant still had a fine reputation. In some ways, it was even better than the Salix Leaf Hotel. Many of the students in the class took public transportation. Even though they were all from wealthy families, it was a lot more convenient with all the traffic jams in Chicago. If it wasn't construction, it was snow or an accident. But a little more than half of the students still drove to school by themselves, and there were others who got rides to and from campus every day. But for an occasion like this, a small number of students would have to ask for rides to get to the hotel for dinner. As they were all heading out of the building, Mike suddenly asked, "Hey, Kevin, why don't you take a taxi to the hotel?" "Why would I do that?" Kevin asked him in surprise. "I'm just going by how you're dressed. I'm pretty sure nobody will let you in their car looking like that," Mike said with a snobby smile. He'd just come up with a plan. If he could put Kevin down, it might make an impression on his classmates. It would be a win-win to turn them against Kevin and also treat the class to dinner. "Mike's absolutely right," Lionel agreed. "Kevin, Professor Murdock really took it easy on you today. That's why you're being allowed to come along to tonight's dinner. Don't put any of your classmates in an embarrassing position. Just take a taxi. If you don't have enough money on you for a cab or to call for a ride on an app, I'll give you a few bucks to cover you. How about $20? Then he pulled some cash out of his pocket and offered it to Kevin. Everyone around them laughed when they saw him do this. They really thought Kevin was pathetic. Kevin frowned as he looked at the money in Lionel's hand. He wondered what the heck was wrong with these guys. "Aren't you overwhelmed by my generosity?" Lionel grinned as he patted Kevin on the shoulder. "There's no need to thank me. After all, we're classmates." "Did I tell you I needed a ride?" Kevin replied very coolly. "What do you mean? Don't tell me you drove here," Mike sneered. "You really drove here, Kevin? Quick, show everyone what kind of ride you have. Is it an electric scooter or a bicycle?" Lionel mocked him. The other students around them were really interested in seeing what kind of car Kevin had. "I'll bet he doesn't even have a license," one of them commented. Considering his reputation, they expected him to be driving an old minivan or some other kind of beater. "Look, Kevin, everyone's interested in seeing your car. Why don't you just show it to everyone?" Mike sneered while he continued to mock him. Before Kevin could answer, Professor Murdock stood up for him and warned them. "Don't bully Kevin anymore. This outing is supposed to be fun." Although Professor Murdock could be very strict, she treated her students with respect. So when she saw Kevin being bullied, she naturally couldn't just stand there and do nothing. "Kevin, why don't you ride with me?" Professor Murdock offered calmly. "How could you do that, Professor? Kevin's clothes are so shabby. He might get your seats dirty," Mike pointed out. He didn't want to give anyone a chance to be alone with Professor Murdock right now, at least until after the student leader election tomorrow. "That's okay. If my car gets dirty, I'll take it to a car wash," Professor Murdock answered casually. She didn't seem to mind at all. "Thank you for your kind offer, Professor Murdock, but I really did drive to school today," Kevin told her. Professor Murdock made a slight frown. She really didn't know what Kevin was thinking. Couldn't he tell that she was trying to give him a way out of this embarrassing situation? "Did everyone hear that? Kevin said that he really drove here," Mike said loudly. "Let's all go take a look at his car." Everyone laughed when they heard this, and then they went along with Mike. They didn't mind showing up a little late for dinner as long as they could have some fun at Kevin's expense. "Lead the way, Kevin. Where'd you park your whip?" Mike said in a very arrogant tone of voice. Kevin turned around and walked towards his car without saying another word. The group of students followed along behind him. They wanted to see how this useless good-for-nothing would make a fool of himself this time. A few minutes later, Mike looked at the in front of him in utter disbelief and asked Kevin, "This is your car?" "Yeah, it's a little more comfortable than my scooter," Kevin replied with a slight grin. When the others heard this, their jaws dropped. They all knew that this was a brand new. It was worth at least $3 million, if you could even find one for sale. Suddenly, Professor Murdock glanced at Kevin with a look of appreciation in her eyes. "Did you rent this with your wife's money?" Mike asked him. Then he continued to bully him. "Kevin, I'm sure your wife works very hard. It isn't right for you to spend her money like this outside." "You know, you could probably rent one yourself," Kevin interrupted him. Mike didn't know how to respond to Kevin's wisecrack. Like everyone else, he really wanted to. Even a rental would be good for showing off. But the problem was he had no idea where he could rent one. "Please, have a seat, Professor. You must be tired after a long day of teaching," Kevin offered as he opened the door and invited her to get in. Then, while he ignored Mike and the others, he walked around and got behind the wheel. As it turned out, Professor Murdock had something to say to Kevin, so she accepted his offer and strapped herself into the passenger seat. Mike clenched his fist and grunted. He took his friends Lionel and Luther and headed to his car. Kevin was nervous to be alone with Professor Murdock, but this might give him a chance to clear the air. Mike and the other students were mocking Kevin mercilessly because they thought he was poor. They asked to see his car, figuring that they could make fun of that too. When they saw his, they all clammed up immediately. Kevin asked Professor Murdock if she wanted to ride with him to the class dinner at the Whistler Hotel, and she agreed and accepted his offer. On the way to the hotel restaurant, Kevin glanced over at his teacher a few times. Professor Murdock had a very strict classroom manner, but it seemed to Kevin that she could also be very understanding and personable. She suddenly turned to Kevin and asked him, "Tell me honestly, is this your wife's car?" "You don't really believe what Mike said, do you?" Kevin replied helplessly. "Isn't it possible for me to have my own car? It's not that I'm biased, but this car." Professor Murdock suddenly let out a sigh before she continued. "Forget about the car. There's something else I wanted to talk to you about." "Please, just say it. You won't hurt my feelings," Kevin exclaimed as he watched the road. "Just look at what happened in the parking lot. Your classmates were all looking down on you because they thought you didn't have a car. It seems that you invite this kind of ridicule," she said bluntly. "If you're too embarrassed to take anything from your wife, then you really should jump at this opportunity," Professor Murdock told him earnestly. "The School for the Healing Arts is the greatest opportunity in your life. Just work hard and focus. If you have any questions, you can always come to me. This is your chance to make a name for yourself." "I understand what you're saying, Professor. I'll definitely work harder from now on," he replied. Kevin stopped at a crosswalk and said to her very sincerely, "But could you please give me my phone back first? I promise I won't take it out during class." "Haven't you been listening to me?" she snapped at him. "If you want your phone back, you'll have to earn it." Then she added, "You can go now." The light turned green. Kevin was perplexed. Did he have to wait until she was in a better mood? The entire Williams family was waiting patiently in the main room of their mansion in New York. They all looked very serious. Randall Williams had ordered them all to be there for an emergency meeting. Anyone who was late would immediately be expelled from the family. This was the first time something like this had ever happened in the Williams family. He must have had something urgent to announce. After a little while, Grandpa Williams walked into the room with Thomas by his side. He sat down in his armchair and looked at everyone gravely. "I called everyone here today to discuss an important matter. Kevin brought Dalton Steele here and caused us a great deal of trouble. But that made me think, if our family wants to continue to progress, we can't rest on our laurels. Sooner or later, we'll be eaten alive by the competition," he stated grimly. "That's why I've decided that we all need to work on ourselves, not only with training, but with the help of advanced herbal medication. It's the only way we can survive," he explained in a serious tone of voice. They were all excited to hear him say this. Everyone was aware of the fantastic things that some people had been doing with these secret concoctions, but right now none of them had the skills to compete with them. "Are you serious, Dad?" Laura was the first one to jump up and ask her father-in-law excitedly. She wasn't really into all the aspects of the topic, but she'd heard that it could promise eternal youth. Who wouldn't be interested in that? Grandpa nodded yes. "We have to keep up with the times. But there's one thing that all of you must remember. If anyone dares to leak a word of this, I'll show them no mercy," he explained to them. "It's the price we have to pay to become stronger, and to achieve our goals, we're going to join the Myriads." The entire room got so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Everyone knew that there were a total of 3 major underground groups that you had to steer clear of. One of them was the Myriads, and the other was the Alliance. As for the third one, hardly anyone knew anything about them. Even the Williams family didn't know who they were. "Grandpa, please be careful. The Myriads are a pretty nasty bunch. Do you really want us to join them?" one of them asked. A lot of them had their doubts about this plan. Didn't it go against the family's values? Grandpa Williams let out a long sigh and admitted, "You're right. I also realized that this probably isn't a wise decision. But we really have no choice. If our family wants to survive, we have to train ourselves. This is the only path we can take." Laura stepped in front of her relatives and scolded them. "You should be listening to Grandpa. Have you forgotten who's in charge here?" She was desperate for the chance to have access to herbal meds that could keep her looking young for the rest of her life. "Laura's right. We have to present a unified front and support my father," Thomas told them solemnly. "I'll do what Grandpa wants," Monty declared as he clenched his fists. "What's important for us is to get stronger." Monty's relationship with his wife Hannah had ended because of the fight with Dalton. Now all he wanted was to cause Kevin as much pain as he'd given him. More and more of them came forward to support Grandpa Williams' decision to join the Myriads. "Then it's settled," Grandpa said. "And remember, this has to be kept secret if we're to gain an upper hand." Then he motioned for everyone to leave. After they'd all gone, Randall Williams pulled out his phone and called Seth Roundtree's number. As soon as the call was connected, he told Roundtree that his family was willing to join the Myriads. Then he invited him to come to the Williams mansion if he had the time. "That's great news. You won't regret this. I'll be there tomorrow," Roundtree replied. While this was going on, Kevin was pulling up to the Whistler Hotel with Professor Murdock. He parked in the VIP area and walked in with her. Mike saw that everyone was starting to trickle in. He walked up to the front desk proudly and said to the staff, "Hi, we're going to need your largest private room." "Good evening, sir. Our largest private room is the VIP room. Please show us your VIP membership card and we'll get things set up right away." Unfortunately, the Whistler Hotel's largest room was only available to special guests. Mitchell Cook didn't mind if the largest private rooms remained empty most of the time. It was more important to have them available for his wealthiest clients. Since the staff hadn't been alerted by Cook that there would be a VIP group this evening, they assumed that this bunch of students didn't have the proper reservation.
"What kind of rule is that? I don't have a membership card and I'm not from around here. All we need is a room. I don't care how much it costs, I'm willing to cover it,"
Mike said confidently. "I'm sorry, sir, without a VIP membership card, we won't be able to open the room for you," the concierge replied firmly.
"Then can I apply for a membership card right now?"
Mike asked. You could tell he was extremely disappointed to see his plans fall apart like this. "I'm sorry, sir. Our largest private room is only available for our most exclusive members. Also, the hotel's owner must be present when someone applies for the card. Today, Mr. Cook is attending to some business and isn't on the property. So you can only apply for a basic membership card at the moment. The application fee is $25,000, the concierge explained with a cheerful smile.
$25,000 just for an application fee? I feel like I'm being robbed,
Mike complained. He really wanted to turn around and leave right then, but when he saw that some of his classmates had already started taking pictures to post online, he changed his mind. They were all excited to be dining in a private room at the Whistler Hotel. He was ready to give up, not just on the dinner, but on being elected student leader. While Mike was trying to resolve his dilemma, Penny Sutherland walked up to him and suggested, "Why don't I call Mr. Cook for you?" The Sutherland family had a great reputation, and getting a private room would be a piece of cake for Penny.
"I'm really sorry, Penny. I didn't know that this hotel had so many rules, or I would have planned better. It's a bummer that I have to ask for your help with this,"
Mike apologized with a charming smile. The concierge heard Penny say this and offered a suggestion to the problem. "If you know Mr. Cook, all you need to do is give him a call and we can set things up once he gives us the word." Right away, Penny pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contact list until she found Mitchell Cook's number. Before she came to Chicago to attend school, her family had given her the contact information for all the famous people in the city. Unfortunately, the call didn't go through. Cook was one of the most prominent people in Chicago. How dare he hang up on someone like Penny Sutherland? "I'm sorry, ma'am, there's nothing we can do about this. Without express permission from Mr. Cook, we're not allowed to open up the VIP room." The concierge apologized before adding, "We do have some smaller private rooms on the third floor of our hotel. They're very close to each other, but we'll have to split up your group."
"If we have to divide the group, then we'll have to forget about the whole thing,"
Mike answered sadly. Everyone was incredibly disappointed to see this. If Penny Sutherland couldn't get them in the VIP room, then the situation was hopeless. Mike had just about given up. He looked at the crowd of students anxiously, unsure what to do next. Just then, Kevin walked up to the front desk. He took a card out of his wallet and handed it to the concierge, saying, "Let's see if I can help open up the VIP room for this nice group of students."
"Kevin, what are you trying to do with your bus pass? Don't you know what kind of place this is? If Penny couldn't get us in, what do you think you're going to be able to do? Why don't you just give up before you make yourself look like a complete fool?"
Mike chastised him. "Well, it's better than your plan. Do you expect us all to stand around here with our fingers in our noses?"
"Can't you see that I'm trying to solve this problem?" Mike retorted angrily. "I've had enough of you. Why don't you just move along? I'm getting tired of looking at you."
Lionel immediately defended his friend and sneered. "Mike's right. What can a useless piece of crap like you do anyway? If you can really get them to open the VIP room, how come you're still mooching off of the Jones family?"
"Stop embarrassing yourself, pretending to be someone you're not,"
Luther also teased. Their insults got a lot of attention from the crowd. Some of the students laughed out loud. The rest of them just scoffed at Kevin. Most of them were from Chicago and they'd actually been to the Whistler Hotel before, but they'd never had the chance to dine in the large private room up on the top floor. It was incredibly difficult to get VIP status at the hotel. Not only did it take a lot of money, but you also had to have some pretty high social status and connections. So what was Kevin doing handling the concierge a bus pass? Since you think this is just a bus pass, I guess I'll just put it back in my wallet, Kevin said as he started to take it back from the concierge.
Well, since you've already taken it out, why don't we give it a try? Mike replied. He obviously didn't want to pass up this opportunity to make Kevin look like a fool, so he ramped things up and added, "Let's see what the hotel staff can do with it." While the crowd was laughing at Kevin, the hotel employees were staring in disbelief. They weren't sure how to defuse the situation. The employee who was holding Kevin's card started to get very nervous when she took a good look at it. During their training, all of the employees of the Whistler Hotel had been required to memorize the appearance of the Supreme VIP card, and that's exactly what Kevin had handed her. Cook had explained to them that there were only 5 cards like this in all of Chicago, and they were only given to the hotel's most prestigious clients. The group of students saw the look on the concierge's face and started to wonder what would happen next. When the students arrived at the Whistler Hotel with Professor Murdock, they couldn't get into the large VIP room, which was the only hall big enough to accommodate all 70 of them. Mike Tripp was embarrassed because he didn't have VIP access, and Penny Sutherland's call to Cook was rejected. They were about to give up when Kevin handed his card to one of the employees. She was shocked for a moment and couldn't speak. Finally, she asked, "Sir, is this card really yours?" "What's wrong?" Kevin frowned as he replied. "This is the card Mr. Cook gave me. Is there a problem with it?" The concierge didn't answer Kevin's question right away. She walked around the counter and handed him his card as she explained. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know you had a VIP card. Please accept my apologies for this misunderstanding." The students who heard this thought that it was a joke. Had Kevin stolen the card from the Jones family? That wasn't possible, they thought, because Kevin's in-laws weren't aristocratic enough to have one. "So then where did Kevin get this card from?" Luther asked.
Lionel started to question him too. "Kevin, this card has got to be..." Before he could finish, Kevin asked the concierge, "Can you please open the private room now?" "Of course. We'll take care of that right away. Everything will be ready in just a moment," she replied with cheerful promptness as she turned around to send someone upstairs to prepare the room. What surprised her was that out of all of the well-dressed students, it was the shabby one who didn't look like he belonged there who actually had the VIP card. She felt lucky to have a chance to remedy the situation before Kevin was offended. The head server came down a few minutes later to lead the group up to the top floor. When they got to the VIP room, he handed Kevin's card back to him and wished him a pleasant meal.
"How did you ever get lucky enough to find a card like that?" Mike asked him in a sarcastic tone.
Kevin's classmates thought Mike was right. After all, how could a good-for-nothing like him have gotten one of those cards legitimately? "Well, why don't you go out and find one yourself?" Kevin said coldly. He just didn't understand why everyone was still making fun of him right after he'd helped them all out. But then he told himself that it wouldn't matter anyway if he fought back. After all, they weren't even on the same level as him. Mike gave up and walked over to the entrance to ask the waiters to bring some menus for the group. But because Professor Murdock was there, everyone hesitated to place their orders.
"Why don't you order for us, Professor?" Mike offered graciously.
"We're not in school, Mike. Don't be shy just because I'm here. This is supposed to be fun," Professor Murdock responded as she gently gave him back the menu. Penny sat quietly off to the side and didn't have the slightest intention of ordering. Kevin was completely left out and nobody even bothered to give him a menu. Suddenly someone shouted,
"Wow, they actually have a... You can't get that anywhere else around here."
Kevin spat his water out when he heard his classmate say that. It was the same wine that Jason had ordered for all of the tables when the Jones family was celebrating Lily's contract with Williams Media. At $20,000 a bottle, the exclusive French wine was so expensive that they all had to chip in to help pay the bill.
"It's my treat. Get whatever you want,"
Mike proudly declared. He had no idea what he was getting himself into. Even Penny gave him a strange look when she heard him say that. When the food and drinks were carried out to the tables, Mike stood up to give everyone a toast. As he raised his glass, he glanced down at the bill.
What the hell is this? $375,000? $300,000 for 15 bottles of wine?
Mike said to himself. Somehow he managed to look calm as he processed all of this. Then Lionel made an announcement. Hey, everyone, listen to me. Take a look at this wonderful feast. Who else would be this generous? I think we should just elect Mike student leader right now so we can save ourselves the time tomorrow in class. The students all seemed to agree with him. But they weren't fools, and they knew exactly why Mike was treating them. Mike was very happy to see this. At least the expense would be worth it. He waved his hand and acted like it was no big deal.
Don't make such a fuss over me. After all, Professor Murdock has the final say in the election. I'm just treating the class so we can all get to know each other better. Don't be so modest, Mike. Who's better qualified to be our class leader? Luther chimed in.
The rest of the students just sat there quietly and watched the show that the three of them were putting on. But they didn't want to seem ungrateful, so they were willing to go along with the idea of electing Mike to the position.
Since no one has any objections, then how could I decline? But let's just call it a temporary position. If anyone feels that I'm not carrying my weight, just say so, Mike declared as he raised his glass to toast his classmates.
Professor Murdock stayed out of the discussion and quietly observed her students as they drank their wine and socialized with each other. Meanwhile, Penny just sat quietly by the window nursing her glass demurely. Her classmates were too intimidated by her to go up and talk to her. While this was going on, Mike took Lionel aside and asked him to go down to his car and bring back a red gift box that he'd left in the trunk. Lionel came back a few minutes later and handed it to his friend. Then Mike carried the box over to Professor Murdock and told her,
Please accept this small gift from me, Professor.
His classmates all started to whisper to each other. Now they could tell that Mike had planned this all along. They'd let him buy his way into the position as student leader. On the other hand, who would have wanted to pay for 15 bottles of wine at $20,000 a pop? Of course, they were correct. Mike was definitely planning to run for the position, so he'd spent a lot of money on his gift for their professor. Professor Murdock glanced at the gift box very stoically. Mike, I appreciate your good intentions, but faculty members are not allowed to accept gifts from students, she pointed out very seriously. It was already very expensive for you to treat your classmates to dinner tonight, so I think you should keep this gift for yourself.
Please, understand it's just a small token, not a gift, Mike replied with a flattering smile. Why don't you just take a look inside before you decide?
I'm sorry, Mike, but it's just not appropriate, she began to explain. But before she could finish what she was saying, Mike opened the box. There was a cream-colored pill inside. Everyone gasped when they saw it. They'd all heard about what had happened at the Pearl family's auction house, and they knew a power pill was worth a fortune. So what was this herbal med and how much could it possibly be worth? Professor Murdock was absolutely speechless, and she stared at the pill in amazement. When Mike handed her the box, she thought it was some kind of expensive jewelry, maybe a necklace. But this was quite a surprise. After all, medicinal pills were getting to be a very popular item, even among the faculty members at the school. Professor Murdock had been at a plateau in her physical and mental development for a while now, and could definitely use a boost to move up to the next level. The room was absolutely silent. Someone suddenly asked, Mike, what kind of medicinal pill did you prepare for Professor Murdock? What does it do?
A really good friend of my father's gave it to me. When I was accepted in the school for the healing arts, my father passed it along to me, Mike said with a proud smile. According to my father's friend, this is an augmentation pill and it can help you really increase your power and mental focus.
There was a huge commotion as they all started chattering. Had they heard him right? They knew that Professor Murdock had to be very well trained already, so this would really make a difference for her. The students could only dream about something like this. Mike had really given their professor something very valuable. Professor Murdock was in a state of shock. She'd only read about the augmentation pill and its physical and mental benefits, but she'd never actually seen one before. If this was really an augmentation pill, then she had no choice but to accept it from Mike. The heck with the school's rules and regulations. The way Professor Murdock saw it, if she gave Mike a recommendation in exchange for the pill, then it wasn't really a gift. With her connections, there were a lot of strings she could pull to help him. Her mind was spinning with all sorts of ridiculous ideas.
"Please accept it, Professor Murdock,"
Mike said with a smile. Of course, he knew exactly what she was thinking. "Since you insist, I really have no choice," she said as she hid her excitement and took the box from Mike. Just then, they were interrupted by a loud voice. "Professor Murdock, you can't take that pill." Everyone was stunned and turned to see who had spoken. It was Kevin. He quickly walked over to Professor Murdock and closely examined the pill in the box.
"Kevin, what are you up to now?"
Mike asked him unhappily. It hadn't been easy for him to get Professor Murdock to accept the pill, but now this jerk was going to ruin everything. "Professor Murdock, this isn't an augmentation pill. I can guarantee that if you take this pill, it will definitely do you a lot of harm," Kevin informed her very seriously.
"Kevin, you have no idea what you're talking about. Do you actually think my father's friend would have lied to him?"
Mike shouted. "Mike, pay attention to your tone," Professor Murdock reminded him.
"I'm sorry, Professor Murdock, but this guy's pissing me off."
Mike sneered at Kevin and continued his rant.
"I understand what's going on. You're jealous that I can get a pill like this and you can't. It's just that I'm from a better family than you are, and I'm also richer and more handsome than you. That has to be disappointing."
"You think you're more handsome than me? Everyone knows that just isn't true," Kevin teased him.
"What do you mean by that?"
Mike retorted as he slammed his fist on the table. "Don't be angry, Mike. This whole thing really isn't worth it," Lionel tried to persuade his friend. Then Luther tried to calm him down.
"Relax, Mike. You're absolutely right. Kevin must be jealous of you. That's why he said there's something wrong with this pill."
"You still don't understand, do you? Both you and your father were cheated by someone. This isn't an augmentation pill at all," Kevin told them bluntly. "An augmentation pill is more of a light blue color. Plus it contains some floral ingredients which gives it a beautiful fragrance. Take another look at the medicinal pill you just gave our professor," Kevin continued. "It's obviously the wrong color and has no fragrance at all." They were all stunned to hear him say this. Even Penny reacted and stared keenly at Kevin. Mike thought about what Kevin had said and his frown turned into a vicious sneer.
"I really didn't expect you to go this far just out of jealousy. Let me ask you something. Have you ever actually seen an augmentation pill with your own eyes?" Mike asked him. "What makes you think you know so much about them?"
Ignoring Mike's questions, Kevin turned around and looked at Professor Murdock. "Professor, if you believe me, you'll give this pill back to Mike. But please don't blame him for it. After all, he and his father were both deceived. But if you don't believe me, then go right ahead and take the pill." Not only had Kevin seen an augmentation pill before, but he'd actually made one and taken it too. He decided not to argue with Mike because he didn't want to stoop to his level. As they say, let sleeping dogs lie. There was no way he could convince Mike he'd made a mistake. And Kevin couldn't slip a real augmentation pill into the box right now anyway, so the best he could do was to warn Professor Murdock. After all, she'd already gone through years of training and study, so there's no way she'd be tempted to take the pill. Or would she?
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.